prior to recording this, we were actually talking about favorite pizza. And apparently Theo hates cheese pizza.
I don't hate it. I hate people whose favorite is cheese pizza. Cheese pizza is an objectively okay thing to eat. It's like a mozzarella stick. But there are better pizzas out there.
I'm not saying that, like, there aren't other good pizzas. I'm just saying that, like, cheese, like, just regular pizza is the best pizza. I like Domino's. I like Papa John's.
Okay, there's a lot wrong with what you just said. But first of all, just plain cheese pizza is barely even pizza. It's like cheese bread. It's not even, like, to say that there is not a single topping that improves cheese pizza is insane to me.
It's not that...
It's insane to me. If it's the best kind, I assume that it can't get improved. And it can. It obviously can. Unless you are a picky eater.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm, of course, joined by the two greatest co-hosts in the world, Matthew Sponhauer and Theo Ash. How are you guys today?
I'm good, but could you rank us 1 and 2?
Man, you know I don't pick favorites.
But it would be me, right?
Before we hop in, just a reminder that we are on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. So whatever you're able to do, whether it be subscribe, rate, review, we'd greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure you give @StayHotPod a follow on TikTok. We'll be posting some great content there as well. Disregarding Matthew's question, we have a lot we want to talk about today. Whether it be, we're going to hop into the NFL a little bit with quarterback camp battles. We have a little bit of a myth we want to bust. But I think it's only appropriate that we discuss the Hawks-Sixers game. Ben Simmons, Trae Young. How are we feeling?
As somebody who spent a large part of the offseason talking about Ben Simmons and the 76ers and whatnot, definitely feel pretty justified right now. But I don't think anybody could have expected the 76ers to go out in the second round of the Hawks like this. When they came into the...
I mean, I did.
When they came into when they came into the playoffs, most people had them in the Eastern Conference Finals. I had them in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I feel like they would have been there if they could have just gotten their stuff together, but they didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Ben Simmons, I tweeted out a lot about this. He just felt totally useless. Like the last 50-some seconds of the game, he wasn't in because he's just not playable.
The missed dunk that he had, which had a lot of dialogue on Twitter, I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, has got to be the most telling, aha moment that I've seen maybe in an NBA game. Watching that just was so symbolic of everything that had happened before, all the problems that they had, everything that's wrong about the Sixers just came to a head during that moment. It was actually amazing to see. Watching that was like, oh my God. And it's so, my first thought was Markelle Fultz and how there had been 2 number 1 overall picks in Philly that just they forgot. They lost it, whatever they had. And Markelle Fultz was the injury. But again, lots of players come back from injury without forgetting how to shoot. And Ben Simmons was never a great shooter, but he used to be better than this. He wasn't scared. And it was just bizarre to me. And I don't know how much the crowd or affected him. I don't know how much maybe social media has. I don't know if he's on social media, but everyone has kind of been berating him recently. I don't know what Doc Rivers is telling him or what the deal is, but I mean that was crazy. That was crazy to see the whole environment. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I watched some of the press conference of the 76ers, and they were not doing a very good job in those press conferences. They should have just taken the fine and not gone up there. But Simmons said that he felt like Gallinari was behind him. And I absolutely refuse to believe that he thought that.
What do you mean?
know for a fact he's basically saying the reason why he passed is because he thought he would get on that dunk play.
Yeah.
So the reason he said he passed out is because he thought Gallinari was right behind him and going to block him. I know he has better court feel than that. I know for a fact he's a great passer. There's no way Gallinari wasn't even that close. And even if he was, you should be able to take that up strong if they're behind you.
Yeah.
So,
and at worst, you get fouled, but he's scared of probably the free throw line.
And the funny thing is, the guy he passed it to, also not exactly the most consistent shooter ever, and he even missed one. So, it's just a weird game for them. I saw Embiid saying that was the turning point in the game. And
Yep. And didn't Doc Rivers say, they asked him if he thought Ben Simmons was a championship caliber point guard, and he said, like, we don't know that. It's just a mess, and there's no way Simmons is there next year. You cannot bring them. You cannot bring them back. And his trade value has got to be. I mean, I don't know if there's a single player who is regarded as good that I would trade for Ben Simmons. Like literally,
I thought maybe Fox. But you probably can't do it 1-for-1. You'd have to give up Simmons and probably multiple picks.
Would you do that if you were Sacramento?
Probably not.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
And this is the problem that the 76ers are facing. There are so few teams. It's not that Simmons is totally worthless. I don't want to make it out like that. Yeah. I think he'll probably come back next year and start playing more like he did before that series. But even then... Especially out of Philly.
But
even then... The team that trades for him has to be rebuilding, basically. No team that's trying to win right now can justify trading for a guy who did that in the playoffs. And they have to have a center who can shoot. Or they have to think that they can play him at the 5, which I don't think you can do. Because, I mean, okay, I've seen people do these like mock trades where he goes to the Pelicans for Brandon Ingram. He can't possibly be on that team. The only two situations I've seen that I can make any sense of are maybe to Portland if they blow it up, and maybe to the Timberwolves. But it's going to be tough to move him.
Yeah, and the idea that you can like move him to the 4 or the 5, which I know when we were talking about a potential Hornets trade we were thinking of, I mean, that totally gets... You totally question that after you see him in the paint with an open basket and he doesn't take it. So you're like, okay, well, if you're not even doing that, like, what is your use? And he has been used. I mean, he's made the All-Star team like every single year. Like, he can be useful. Like, there is a reason he has been there. But like, when the playoffs come around, you just need someone who is not scared and not. I mean, he took like 6 shot attempts in a fourth quarter, and it's like you just can't rely on him. And he's gonna have to prove. He's going to have to prove that he's going to have to shake that monkey off his back. And he's not going to have a chance to do that before he's going to get traded. So maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but right now we don't know. And you've got to make a trade for him, hoping that it happens eventually and he does snap
also,
out of
Theo,
it.
He didn't take 6 shot attempts in the fourth quarter. He took 6 shot attempts in the entirety of fourth quarter playoffs.
Right, right.
It is hard to get out of your own head, and that's what he's going to have to do.
Yeah. So,
and especially for a guy who's never really gotten better since his rookie year, like he doesn't have this history of like working his way out of any kind of hole. He just kind of has steadily gotten worse, and now going on like 5 years into it, he's going to actually have to like make a big jump up. And I mean, he's never been able to do that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Embiid's kind of the number one there. We've always known that. Do you think that Embiid is Embiid the kind of player that can actually be a number one in the same way that like Giannis is and that Trae Young has been for the Hawks? Do you think Embiid, or should the Sixers try and get a player who can really take over that offense in a different type of way?
You know, one thing that's always bothered me is that people will say Embiid and Simmons aren't a very good fit. It's not Embiid. It's not him. Why? Like the reason why they're a bad fit is because Ben Simmons can struggle to do a lot of things. Embiid's interesting. I mean, in a perfect world, if you're a championship level team, you want your best player to be a perimeter creator. And I'm not saying that Embiid doesn't do that, but he is much better off in like the dunker position, working down low in the basket, meaning that they're going to need another high level perimeter creator to pair with him. But I absolutely do think he could be the best player on a championship team. It just needs to be built better around him. I'm not going to change my opinion heavily on him based on this series. I mean, he had a good shot at winning MVP this year.
You've said you'd rather have Embiid than Giannis.
I'm going back and forth on that. It's a tough one. I don't know. Giannis is going to the Eastern Conference Finals right now. It's easy to say that, but I also think Giannis has a better built team around him.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis, over the past 3 years, Giannis has more points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game. His efficiency is better. His offensive and defensive rating is better, and now he's led his team farther. So, if you look at it like that, yeah, that's probably a Giannis thing. But I do think that there is something to be said where, like, I do think Embiid kind of does have a little bit of a more well-rounded skill set, although even at 3-point percentage, Embiid over the last 3 years is at like 33% and Giannis is at 29%, so it's not some huge difference. So,
well, yeah, like 100%. I feel like the big difference between Embiid and Giannis has kind of done this for the last 3 years playing at this level, and this is Embiid's first season where he's really at that peak MVP level, so you probably want to stick with the guy who's been doing it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, but that being said, I do think, this kind of goes into Bucks versus Nets. I never watched Giannis and felt like he was totally on, and he was like totally making this huge positive obviously was making a positive impact. But when I looked at the numbers after the games and I saw that he had dropped like 35 and 12, the numbers didn't match what I thought I was seeing on the court. And the positive impact on the stat sheet looked a little bit better than the positive impact that I saw on the court. So that's the only thing where it's like, yes, statistically, it's hard to make a case against Giannis. But I do think there's something to be said for the fact that, he I don't know how many times I've seen a tweet that says Giannis has no bag over the past week or so. But I think there is something to be said that Joel does seem to, like, when it comes to eye test, I do think Embiid passes it sometimes a little bit better. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts on that would be, Matt.
I think that description fits pretty well for Simmons, because I made a comment that Simmons seems totally useless on the court, and a lot of people brought up, he had 13 assists. How is that useless? It's because he had 13 assists off of like just not being able to score and just passing off. And it's like, if you watch the game, you can see that he's not really contributing to the offense.
Yeah, you can. I think that's kind of fair. Like, if he has like 13 and 10, it can look like kind of a salvageable game, but those 13 and 10 didn't really impact any. Giannis is on a different. Obviously, Giannis is better than Ben Simmons, but like,
right? Yeah,
there are times where I'm like,
Giannis and Ben Simmons.
There are just times where I'm watching Giannis, and it's like I'm watching Giannis, and it's like I don't know if the impact matches. And there were multiple times, like my timeline on Twitter was like kind of questioning Giannis, and he ended up winning the series, which is very good on him. And he said, I don't know. What are your Matt's? I'm interested to hear what you think about this.
I don't disagree. I think you're kind of right. When you watch the game, for sure, like everybody was hyping up Kevin Durant that whole game and not Giannis. And then you check the scoreboard avenue, you're like, oh my God, he had 40. Giannis had 40 points. But I feel like that's because some of his baskets are just less interesting. I really think it comes down to that. When Kevin Durant goes and gets a bucket, he's going to go rise up over one of the best defenders in the league and hit this sweet mid-ranger, or Embiid's going to, do this turnaround fade, or like work somebody in the post. But a lot of Giannis's points come off stuff that's just as valuable, but maybe not as interesting to watch. Like, okay, Giannis has a really good putback. Giannis has a really good cut that gets him open, and it seems like an easy play that's less interesting to watch, but really, 2 points is 2 points. I do think that it's a little easier. Like, if you think of Giannis making a play, like some of his, I don't know how to word this. I do think that when Giannis shoots from perimeter, it's more memorable for me. Like, that's the number one thing. I'm like, ooh, that's a... Let me get back at that. I'm trying to figure out how to word that. I think that also sometimes when Giannis shoots from the perimeter, that sticks in your brain a little bit more because you're always questioning whether or not that's the right play. But I feel like it's more being biased as a fan because of what's interesting to watch rather than it is Giannis not making an impact, dropping 40 points. He's getting work done.
I think that's probably fair. And I mean, you can look at even like his dunks are exciting. Like Embiid had this breakaway, like big dunk that happened, and it was a big Embiid highlight, and I saw it posted on Twitter a bunch of times. And Giannis does that like 3 or 4 times a game.
Exactly.
So it's kind of both. They both got their skill sets. I think Embiid is a little bit more of like diverse. His points come in a little bit more of a diverse way, which can make it appear. But yeah, being really, really good at one thing, which is driving, is a good thing to be good at. So yeah, I would have to leave. I know earlier we kind of hinted that it was Embiid, but now that I've kind of taken a step back and really looked at it, I think Giannis has got the much better argument. So
yeah, somebody questioned me about that earlier, and I said Embiid, but I think you got to at least see Embiid do it for another year before you really start to put him in that conversation.
I think part of it also, Giannis might have higher expectations. It's back-to-back MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. The expectation is to be the best player on the court at all times. So any time that he's a step behind that, it's like, oh, he's not playing up to par. So, and I think LeBron gets kind of that same treatment sometimes. Speaking of LeBron James, I have a myth that I want you guys to bust for me. Kevin Durant, his legacy is a little bit in question. It's being compared to LeBron, not being, with him not being able to get out of the East with injuries. Do you think that's fair?
I talked to somebody about this earlier, and the problem is that LeBron fans have had people tell them, like, oh, it's LeBron's fault he's not winning a championship, and bring up finals record a ton. And then all of a sudden this year, Curry's team sells Curry, and Kevin Durant's team sells Kevin Durant. Like, they choke the games away when those guys are playing fantastic. And LeBron fans want their get back right now. They do. They want to come out here and say, oh, I thought we were supposed to win no matter what. And you're seeing a lot of, people, fans of other players turn around and say, well, I thought we were, it was based on how well they played. So it's definitely a big shift for at least NBA Twitter right now. I don't think it's fair to hold this against Kevin Durant. He dropped, 49, 48 points? Totally ridiculous.
He played one of the best basketball games ever.
He was a shoe size too big from hitting, the greatest game winner of all time.
Yeah, and it was tough to see him miss that shot in overtime where he, spun around and it was an air ball, but he played, a combined 100 minutes in the last couple games or whatever, so you can't blame him.
Yeah, I don't think that LeBron, if 2018 LeBron did what, or he did do what Kevin Durant did, and it's not real difference where LeBron was on some another level as KD was as individual players. They're obviously not on different levels. They were both playing at about as high a level as you can play the sport of basketball. And if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. It's not on you. When you're playing at the highest level that anyone can possibly play, that's what you can do. If you lose, that's sorry. Point at Joe Harris. Don't point at Durant.
That's 100% the way that it is. But that's not interesting enough. That's not good for Twitter. That's not going to get you a bunch of likes on Twitter, right? Being like, well,
no, it's not going to get you a bunch of likes on Twitter. Well, it might give you, Matt. It might give you a bunch of likes on Twitter, but it won't give. It won't give icy LeBron season and LeBron goat burner a bunch of likes on Twitter.
The one positive I see out of the Nets losing, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, I think that putting Kevin Durant in a position where he consistently needs to play literally the entire game with his injury history was probably not the best thing long term, and it might be better that he didn't have to do that for 2 more series. I thought he was going to get hurt for sure.
I can see that. And the other thing, I think injuries, people chalk them up to luck. And I think that that's kind of a discredit to training staffs and coaching staffs, because I think of the Nets and how injured they were. And I have to wonder, did their training staff really do the best possible job they could? And did the coaching staff really make the best possible decisions they could on when everyone was coming back? And I don't know what the Nets will look like next year. Will all the big three come back? But I mean, I think they're going to be dangerous next year with a full off season. Because there is just, people are dropping like flies because of this, maybe because of the short off season, but I don't know. I feel like the athletic training staff of the Nets is going to get a pretty much, no one's going to talk about the athletic training staff, but I do think that the Nets just did not handle their injuries super well. And I don't think it was all just luck either.
What I think it is fans, and maybe front offices too, I really don't know, tend to ignore a player being injury prone until it actually happens. So the Nets are a super team, no doubt, but they built their team from Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, 2 really injury-prone players. Kevin Durant coming off, a huge injury, and Kyrie Irving, I don't remember the last time that he just played a full season, played in the playoffs, no problem. So, yeah, part of it is the shortened season. In fact, most of it's the shortened season. And they were put in a really tough position. But that is part of the risk that they took when they built their team around Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And it sucks that they can't play all the time. But it is something you have to take into consideration.
Can I say something? On the High Pitch Takes account a while back before the playoffs, I guaranteed the Nets would win the finals. And I added this little asterisk. I said the only thing that can stop them is injuries. They are a guaranteed finals win unless they get hurt. And when the Nets got out, I was I have never received hate and people taking a victory lap on me like that account. If you guys you have access to it, so you can go look at the comments.
I've seen them.
And yes, it's a ridiculous amount. It's hundreds and hundreds of comments calling me a clown for saying the Nets were a lock unless they get hurt, which is not even a bad I literally did not miss on that one. That is true. They were a lock. I would do it again. And if they come back in 2022 and it's the same core, I'll guarantee it again. And I just want to get that off my chest, that was not a miss. I stand by that. I did add the if healthy caveat, and that is... our
producer just put in the chat.
Just something that's
he
annoying.
Says, now you know how Bladen feels when getting murdered for ice cream takes. I was going to say that that's exactly what happened to me when the Saints cleared their cap.
But I was right. You're wrong. You're getting torn apart for something that is objectively the incorrect opinion, and I
wait. Which one are we talking about? Which one are we talking about? The ice cream?
The lemon ice cream. Lemon ice cream.
Theo, you said that you've never received hate before.
I've never received that much on a video. Okay, I've received a ton of hate before.
He's received hate. He's never received that victory lap type of...
people taking a victory lap on me because people hate me when I give the opinion all the time. Like, I think that Joe Burrow's not. When I said Joe Burrow, I didn't think he had a very big arm. Everyone came at me, but then no one's coming at me at the end of the season when he is the worst deep passing quarterback in the league. No one's coming at me again and being like, you were wrong. This was the one where everyone just piled on me like, look at how wrong Theo was. Like, I've never had that happen to me before, and I wasn't even wrong. I was right there with you. Yeah, I mean, I thought that they were a lock if they stayed healthy. I did talk a couple of times on my personal TikTok about how I thought that it was less likely that they stayed healthy than maybe people were considering. But that's the way that it is. It's not fun to project injuries. People are not. It's not fun to, obviously, I'm going to say if they're healthy. The Hawks will beat the Bucks if Giannis gets hurt. I'm not going to project you want to project things when everyone's healthy. Yeah. Anyway,
absolutely. Going into the conference finals, in the West we have the Suns and the Clippers. I think a lot of us are leaning Suns here. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I got Suns. I feel pretty good about it.
I mean, after watching that first game, I think CP3 will be back. Maybe. I mean, it's just a guess at this point. Right. It seems like CP3 will be back before Kawhi. And, I mean, the Suns looked great even without CP3, which, probably came to a big surprise to a lot of the people who thought that Booker was less valuable than CP3 the whole season and how that's been a narrative, which I've kind of ignored because I don't want to, hate on Chris Paul. I'm fine if people think Chris Paul is awesome, but it always has been Booker. Booker's always been the best player on the Suns, and Booker's still there. Booker is literally playing like he's Kobe right now. It's ridiculous. The dude is nuclear. I think the Suns have got it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were saying that the Clippers, they've been down 0-2 before, but now they don't have Kawhi, and if the Suns get CP3 back, I think it's over.
Well, it's a lot different. I think the big difference maker between the Jazz series, the Mavericks series, and the Suns series is that I think DeAndre Ayton is not going to let them get away with things like Nick Batum at the 5 for extended periods of time and things like that. From what I've heard, Chris Paul is day-to-day for Game 2. I don't know how that is. It seems like it would be a certain amount of time since he got COVID. But if there's some chance he's back for Game 2, that's really good. And you got to figure he'd be back for Game 3 no matter what. Whereas with Kawhi, all I've heard is he's trying to get back as quick as possible. And he has a knee injury.
Yeah.
And if they rush that back, that could be dangerous. Whereas with Chris Paul...
We've seen that before.
Yeah, it's like he's just out with COVID and doesn't seem to have any symptoms. So when he comes back, you got to figure he'll be less likely to get re-injured.
I think I saw a TikTok of Chris Paul at home, dancing.
Yeah, with his
he
kids.
seemed pretty fine. He seemed like, okay. So, yeah, I think once we get Chris Paul back, Booker is just so phenomenal. And watching him play is just a blast. He's just amazing. I love Devin Booker. I'm a big Devin Booker guy. But I think the Suns, and I don't even know what I'm going to do if the Suns are in the finals. I did not expect to be in this position. Dude, do I go back? Do I go to the finals?
You gotta go. You gotta go.
You absolutely have to go.
Yeah, I kind of do. That would be a really rare opportunity and something I should probably
I'm going to be 100% honest. Chris Paul is 36 years old. I don't know if the Suns have a great path to improve if something happens to him. And even then, who knows if they can make another run again. It's hard to get back to the finals. You got, and they've got, I mean, they should have home court. I don't know what the records are. I don't know exactly how that stacks up, but they might have home court in the finals. So you got to go.
I keep saying, if the Browns go to the Super Bowl, I'm there.
Well, if the Packers are in the Super Bowl, I'd definitely go. It's just that the Suns, I was a fan of the Suns last year was the first time I was a fan of the Suns. Last year. So it's not like I'm this long-term Suns fan. I don't feel like I deserve to go. I don't. I feel like there is a bigger Suns fan than me. I love the Suns, and I'm having a blast watching them. But it's like, man, am I a big enough Suns fan to spend like...
Who cares?
You're right. Okay, so we're going to predict that the Suns are probably going to win. What, Suns in 5? Suns in 6?
Suns in... I'll say Suns in 7 just to be my pessimistic self. I do think that the Suns have...
I don't want to give the Clippers no credit because Paul George is playing fantastic right now. They're going to get a game. But it just comes down to those, like, that last stretch that they had in game 1 where you're relying on guys like Reggie Jackson and Nick Batum to make big-time shots. Not trying to hate on those guys. Reggie Jackson's been playing better than I thought he would. Nick Batum's been playing better than I thought he would. Cousins even had some good minutes too. But it's just tough to have those guys be taking big-time shots,
Yeah, especially when the Suns are so deep and just do not have to deal with, But anyway, if they get to the finals, I'll have a big decision to make. And,
maybe you won't have a big decision.
They got to get there first.
If it's Suns,
they got to get there
Bucks,
first.
You can just... You could stay.
Suns Bucks would be awesome.
That's the perfect. That's perfect scenario for you.
You got if it's Suns Bucks, then you'll never have a better chance to go to the finals. That matchup will almost certainly never happen again. I say that, and then 3 years from now it'll happen again. And
it's Wisconsin sports versus the Suns. I can't if the Suns are going to get beat in the finals, I hope it's to the Bucks because I do like the Bucks. But go Suns anyway. I'll have a big decision to make if they beat the Clippers, and I'll have to think of something. Maybe I'll ask people for money. I might do it.
So Hawks Bucks then. Do you think the Bucks are going to win this series? I kind of feel like I've been picking the Hawks all playoffs. I think I'm going to stick with it.
Yes, I think the Bucks can win this series.
Okay.
I think that is in the realm of possibility. Yes, I think they will win this series. I think they will.
Yeah, they're going to... I'm feeling pretty good about them winning the series. I mean, right now, we're at a point where I just think whichever team stays healthiest is going to win it all, but that's not an interesting prediction. I really don't know what the Hawks winning this series looks like. Not to pick against them, because I am super high on Trae Young, and I'm super happy to see them make the Eastern Conference Finals. But I don't necessarily love Clint Capella trying to stop Giannis. I really wish they had DeAndre Hunter right now. And they don't, and that's killer. It's an uphill battle for them.
Yeah, it seemed like the last series was more the Sixers losing the series than the Hawks really winning the series, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. And you had a lot of guys like step up and have a big game, like Herter had a big game and Lou Williams had a big game. So they're just going to need a lot to break their way. I think they get a game. I still don't really love what Coach Bud does with the offense when things get difficult. And to some extent, the Nets weren't that well prepared to defend the Bucks, and they took it to 7. So maybe I'm underrating Clint Capella because he's a very good defender. Don't get me wrong. But Giannis is just tough to stop.
All I'm saying,
I probably
would you have picked the Sixers to beat the Bucks?
Dude, I had no clue. I don't think so, though.
I don't think the Sixers just looked so disjointed. They looked so just not built well. They did not look like a team that the talent on paper looks like they should like be a contender, but like you watch them and you watch what Simmons was doing, and it just seemed frustrated. And I think I would have picked the Bucks either way. And I'm glad it's Hawks Bucks because I think it's good for the Hawks to get this like publicity of being in the Eastern Conference Finals, because next year, I mean, moving to Atlanta, playing with Trae Young on a team that is very close to making the finals, I could see that being a very, very attractive pitch
100%
for some all-star wing, some like, big player. And then next year, and the Hawks made a lot of moves. I really like the offseason the Hawks had last year. I didn't expect them to go this far, but like you were like, man, that Hawks team is going to shoot the lights out. It looks dangerous. I didn't expect them to go this far. And but I think that the Hawks next year could really woo, in Atlanta especially, that city, could woo someone really good. I don't know who that would be, but I think NBA players might want to live in Atlanta. All right, is that a hot take? I would want to live, like, Atlanta seems awesome.
I think that the big takeaway for Atlanta, even if things don't go their way this series, is that Trae Young is that guy in the playoffs. And that's what's important. The guy that they have gets it done in the playoffs and exceeds expectations. But I will say, the one thing I want to give them credit for, they've done a great job against amazing defenses. And they're going up against another amazing defense. So I have no reason to believe that they can't do it again. They're going to throw a lot at Trae Young, I'm sure. I just, even as somebody who would like to see the Hawks, I mean, it'd be sweet if they made the finals. You just got to give this one to the Bucks. I think there's just a talent difference, and they're more experienced. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd give this one. The talent gap is pretty severe. So maybe the Bucks coaching staff chokes it away. One of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my life was right before that game, that Kevin Durant game-tying shot, the announcer said, do you put Giannis on him or do you keep PJ Tucker on him? Or they posed that question before I'm like, why is that even a question that is getting discussed right now? Like, why is that even mentioned? I don't understand. So, yeah, maybe if they go down like at any point in the series, their coach might get fired. But yeah, the talent gap is too much to overcome.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns here. I got to stick with the Hawks. I've been picking them all throughout the playoffs. Even though it goes against all logic to pick them, because I've been all for just take the team with the better talent, I got to go with the Hawks. I got to stick with them.
A little bit of a hot take. So you would say that the Atlanta Hawks are more talented than the 76ers?
It's not necessarily that they're it's like, again, like Theo said, on paper the Sixers should be more talented, but Ben Simmons is such a liability that it ends up being like a wash basically.
It's not, I don't think it's the craziest take to say that the Bucks could lose to the Hawks. I'm not going to pick it, but the Hawks are the better coached team. And you've seen the Bucks make a lot of dumb mistakes on offense. Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday have been really spotty. But
yeah, their three-point shooting has been really bad this whole playoffs, pretty much.
They shot well last game. The Bucks shot well from three last game.
Yeah, and there was some Bryn Forbes game. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Before we hop into the NFL, prior to recording this, we were actually talking about favorite pizza. And apparently Theo hates cheese pizza. And I
don't hate it. I hate people whose favorite is cheese pizza. Cheese pizza is an objectively okay thing to eat. It's like a mozzarella stick. But there are better pizzas out there.
I'm not saying that like there aren't other good pizzas. I'm just saying that like cheese, like just regular pizza, is the best pizza.
Okay, where from?
See, I made the TikTok about this. I haven't been to enough pizza places to pick like a favorite pizza place. I like Domino's. I like Papa John's. Like
if you okay, there's a lot wrong with what you just said. But first of all, just plain cheese pizza is barely even pizza. It's like cheese bread. It's not even like to say that there is not a single topping that improves cheese pizza is insane to me.
It's not that
it's insane to me.
I don't know. I just don't.
If it's the best kind, I assume that it can't get improved, and it can. It obviously can, unless you are a picky eater.
I like pepperoni. I think pepperoni is good. I like bacon. I think bacon is
Okay.
good. My problem isn't that it doesn't
Okay.
taste as good. My problem is that it feels greasy. I feel disgusting after eating pepperoni or bacon pizza.
That's valid. That's why I like margarita pizza. That's my favorite. The grilled chicken, spinach, and then like the tomatoes on there, I feel like it doesn't get as greasy for some reason. And that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah, I guess you could say the like grease factor, like adding up meat lovers, like a bunch of like fried food to a pizza or whatever. Probably, maybe that's valid. But the thing is, you're eating pizza. You can't be eating like cheese pizza and be like, I'm a picture of health. Like, like it's just not. Some pepperoni is not going to move the needle there.
I don't know,
And
pepperoni's
green
pretty-
peppers. You got to put peppers on the pizza, and pepper is so good together.
I don't like
green
peppers,
on a
but-
pizza, red peppers on a pizza, any kind of pepper. I'll eat peppers just straight up plain.
Dude
peppers
eats
are an
peppers like
elite
apples,
vegetable.
just like takes a bite out of a pepper.
What's everyone's thought on Hawaiian pizza?
It's pretty good.
I've never
it gets,
had Hawaiian
it gets,
pizza, but
it's not my favorite. I'm in a weird middle ground where everyone is like pineapple on pizza is either great or it's just the most disgusting thing ever. I think it's fine. It's not something I order just like over something else, but if it's there, I'll have no problem eating like a Hawaiian pizza. I think it tastes all right.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't have a problem eating a Hawaiian pizza either. I want to try barbecue chicken on pizza. I feel like that would be the best pizza I've
pretty
ever
good.
had.
It's pretty good. We made it at the movie theater. When I worked at the movie theater, we had to make, for some weird reason, our concessions were very limited, except for the pizzas, in which case we had like margarita pizza and a bunch of random stuff. And we had to make a bunch of different kinds of pizzas for some reason at this movie theater. And the barbecue chicken was always pretty good.
Love to hear it. All right. Well, we're going to hop into some NFL QB camp battles. Just kind of the main ones. Starting off with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. I think, a lot of people are going to project Jameis to win it, but I don't think that should be necessarily a guarantee.
I think that Sean Payton likes Taysom Hill being Taysom
Yeah.
Hill. I think he likes using Taysom Hill as Taysom Hill, and I don't think he would just have him as the starting quarterback, which would limit him from using Taysom Hill in the Taysom Hill way. I think Sean Payton uses Taysom Hill to look smarter than everyone else, to be like, look how creative I am using Taysom Hill as instead of Alvin Kamara, or look at me throw to Taysom Hill instead of Michael Thomas. And I think he feels so sneaky and smart, and I don't think it is very sneaky and smart, but I think that's what he likes about Taysom Hill. I don't think that he thinks Taysom Hill is like this great quarterback, because he's not. I think he just likes using him at tight end. So I think Jameis Winston will win the battle, and Taysom Hill will continue to just be Taysom Hill.
I think that's a fair assessment.
I think that, from what I've seen at least, Jameis Winston stretches the field a little bit more, or a good bit more, than Taysom Hill. And that's the big thing that the Saints were lacking with Drew Brees, is that, obviously super smart, pinpoint accurate, short and intermediate throws, but you want to stretch the field a little bit, make life a little bit easier for everybody else on the offense. So I'd go with Jameis, probably.
I would project Jameis as well. And if he does win it, I keep saying this, Michael Thomas Offensive Player of the Year. I full-heartedly believe that.
He could get a crazy amount of targets.
That's what I'm saying.
He could get a crazy amount of targets.
It'll be the most volume he's ever had.
I disagree with that, but
What?
I won't get into it. I don't think it'll be the most. I don't think he'll have more volume than he did a couple years
maybe
ago.
not
That
in
was a
terms of
lot
like
volume.
targets, but in terms of like deep volume.
Maybe that. Yeah, sure.
I think his like average depth of target is going to be stupid. But moving on to the Broncos, they got Teddy and Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock ends up starting the season, but there's a good chance that he just looks bad, like by week 5, and they just bench him, and they're just like, yeah, you're done, and Teddy finishes out the season. Or maybe you get like a Ryan Fitzpatrick to a situation where maybe Drew Lock starts a game, and if they're down in the 4th, they put Teddy in. But Matt should know this better than anyone. Teddy isn't, a guy that's going to win you games.
Well, I would say that I'd start Teddy Bridgewater from day one. As somebody who's been really critical of Teddy Bridgewater,
That's the
I'm
first
starting
good
Teddy
thing I've
Bridgewater.
ever heard you say.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't agree with the idea that Teddy Bridgewater, well, he doesn't win you games, but he doesn't lose you games. He loses you games from being too conservative. You can do that. But when you have a great defense like the Broncos do, a guy who maybe is a little bit more big play prone, but more turnover prone, can really kill you sometimes when you just need to get the 17, 20 points to win. I think the Broncos have a lot of playmakers on that offense. So I do like Teddy a little bit more. And I don't think he'll do that bad with the Broncos if he starts.
Yeah, and I'm doing a video right now. My next at Theo Ash NFL video is I'm watching some Drew Lock film. I haven't gotten that done yet. But the thing about Lock is that when he is under pressure, he guns it down the field, and he just you're not that guy. you're not that guy. Like, yeah, you're not that guy, pal. Like Aaron Rodgers does that, Josh Allen does that, Mahomes does that. When they're under pressure, they look down the field, and that's smart because you have to kind of bring in coverage people if you're going to pressure them, so that opens stuff up. So it's smart to do if you have the facilities for that, and I just don't think that Drew Lock totally does. So
Drew Lock has an arm.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, from a pure talent standpoint, like, yeah, he is a talented guy, but like, there's just so much more that goes into it, and it's not just like how far you can throw it. Does that make you good under pressure? Like, no. So I agree with Matt where it's like with the defense that they have. I mean, maybe if he lights up training camp, it's tough to know, but I would just go with Bridgewater, try to win as many games with like 20 points as possible, and just try not to let Locke screw it up. And I think I agree with Matt. Now, I think Locke will win it? I would start Bridgewater. I think they will start Locke, and then Locke might get benched.
I would agree.
My only concern with starting Bridgewater is if you do that, I feel like you totally give up on Locke. And if you have any belief as a coaching staff that Locke could be your franchise guy, I think you have to start him week 1.
He's a second-round pick. He was not this first overall guy. He was a second-round pick.
But like,
you played him all of last season and the season before. He's wild. He's not smart. He's like, how much longer do you want to? You get 1 year. You get one shot at this great defense, probably. There's so many free agents that they have. He had it's second-round pick. This is not some like guaranteed future franchise guy. And they'll have preseason. They'll have training camp to like compare him. Does he look better this training camp or last training camp? Right. You know, like, does he look better than he was last year? And you make your decision on that, I guess. So it's not like he will have zero chance before the season starts. But I feel like you just have such a good defense. You don't want a quarterback who's just going to throw it away. You want a quarterback who can at least keep it steady.
No, it's totally fair.
Or I guess at most keep it steady.
Yeah, steady Teddy. So moving on to the Bears, got Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. And, Matt Nagy has already said that Andy Dalton will be the starter. I don't think he's like, trying to throw a smoke screen or anything. I think Dalton will probably be the starter week 1. But I wanted to throw out their first 6 games, right? Because we talked about maybe you don't want to throw Justin Fields out against, the defenses like the Dolphins and the Rams. Well, they go, in order, they go Dolphins, Bills, at Titans, at Rams, and they go Bengals, Browns. Is it unreasonable to think that week 5 against the Bengals, maybe they start Fields because he's not going up against, one of the 5 best defenses in football?
I feel like with rookie quarterbacks, it's nice to maybe have them go to a game or whatnot. Like, okay, regular season game, you're not playing, but here's the environment. Slowly work them in a little bit. But Andy Dalton is pretty rough at this point in his career. And I'll make maybe a little bit of a bold take. I think this will be kind of a Tyrod Taylor situation where it's like he's the bridge quarterback, but then immediately it's going to be clear.
Well, Tyrod got a medical issue.
I'm not talking about with the Chargers. I'm talking about more with the Browns. That's on me.
Okay.
But
there was a medical issue with the Browns
took him out
too.
because
That's
apparently
my
he
fault.
had a concussion.
But okay. So I don't mean to hate on Tyrod Taylor, but there's often times where it's like this is our bridge quarterback, and then immediately it's like I don't see the point of him just like playing a bunch of time, and I feel like it's going to be with the Bears because the Bears were a playoff team last year, and they want to win games now. It's not like they just totally don't care. I think Fields will probably
a playoff team.
The idea of like Dalton is our starter no matter what before you even get Fields, in camp and really see what he can do in preseason. I don't know. I see that as just committing too early when you don't really know. for sure who's going to be better. And that's fine. They're doing that just to have some stability at the quarterback position. But I would expect Fields to start sooner rather than later.
And this coaching staff is on very thin ice. And if they start like 1-2, which is very possible against when you're playing the Browns and you're playing the Rams right away, like if they kind of start in a little bit of a hole, like they're coaching for their jobs, and they may never get a chance to coach Justin Fields if they stick with Dalton for a long time and they go 6-11.
Yeah,
you know.
Very true.
So I think that they might start out with Dalton. He might be the martyr against the Rams, and maybe the Rams eat him alive. I don't know. But after that, I could definitely see
what week do they play the Rams?
They play the Rams week 4.
Week 1.
They play the Dolphins week 1 and the Rams week 4. Or unless I have that.
What I see Rams, Bengals, Cleveland, Lions on this graphic here.
Are you looking at preseason? Are you looking at the first 3 games that are preseason as the first 3 weeks?
I'm looking at the first 2021 season.
Yeah,
September
I might have
Rams,
the preseason games then.
For sure. If that's their game plan, saying Dalton's a starter no matter what because they don't want Fields to be the starter against the Rams in his very first game, good call. Very good call. Don't put him in against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey game 1. Confidence is so important for a position like this, and you can mess a guy up by putting him in a situation like that. I'm not saying that this hurt Tua long term, but you saw the Dolphins do that with Tua, and it was just a tough game for him because those are tough guys to go up against.
Yeah. Did they win that game? They may have won that game.
They won that game because it was super crazy. Their defense won them that game. They had like a special teams touchdown. It was
Jared Goff. Right, Jared Goff, they did cover 0, and Jared Goff just didn't know what to do because they just sent the house at him every play, and Goff just had no idea what was doing. But Tua did not have a great game there either. He threw like 80 yards.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough. But I think like again with a coaching staff that's so thin, and like on such thin ice, they just gotta see what you have in Fields because Dalton's not winning you enough games to keep their job. So we will see Fields, guaranteed. We'll see Fields by week like 5, I think.
All right, so. Yeah, to round out the carousel of Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, kind of a similar situation, I feel like, with maybe Dalton and Fields. The 49ers' first 3 games are at Lions, at Eagles, and then they play the Packers. And
that's easy.
I skipped the preseason one this time.
Good.
But I figure Lance probably gets the start at some point this year.
Well, Jimmy G's so injury prone that they might just get that from there. Jimmy G's a lot better than Dalton is. I do think Lance is more likely to because Kyle Shanahan is not on any kind of hot seat, and Lance does, coming from a 1 year starter from a small school, probably needs a little bit more time to sit than Justin Fields, who was cutting his teeth at OSU for a long time. So I could definitely see like Lance sitting maybe even the whole season. That's somewhere where I could see it. But I think Jimmy G will probably get hurt. My thing is like they play the Lions week 1. Like, come on, let me see Trey Lance go at it against Detroit. I want to see Trey Lance go at it against one of the worst rosters in football. I do want to see that. But if they want, I think maybe you wait on Garoppolo to see if Shanahan just at some point gets fed up or if he gets hurt, maybe. But man, I kind of want to start him. I could see Shanahan getting fed up with Jimmy G. It didn't seem like
it's not like McVay.
Also,
McVay was actually done with Goff.
Yeah, I also think Lance is kind of a football genius. I kind of think Lance is like really, really smart and can pick up on things quickly, and he's more talented than Jimmy G. So if they feel like Lance has a better football IQ by the time the season rolls around than Jimmy G, like he might just be the better quarterback. But I just don't know if they throw him in so early. But I don't know. I could see that going
maybe you
either way.
Test it out with the preseason. Maybe you test it out with the preseason, but.
Well, yeah, you definitely test it out with the preseason. But there is definitely one more quarterback battle that we got to talk about, which is Cam and Mac Jones.
Stop.
Cam and Mac.
I think the report I saw at a training camp is that I just think that the Patriots would be more comfortable with Mac Jones because of their scheme. And I know they changed it last year, but for a long time, and they had the most success with the Mac Jones type of offense than a Cam Newton type of offense. And I do wonder how much that plays into it, because I do think that they would be more comfortable doing that.
I don't think they have the receiving core for Mac Jones to succeed. Like they have tight ends that are good, but Mac Jones is used to the same stuff that Tua was used to. And, Tua last year said that he was not comfortable throwing into coverage. Like if a receiver only had a yard of separation, Tua wasn't comfortable throwing that. Mac Jones, I think, will have the same issue where he's too used to throwing to these wide open Alabama receivers. And I don't know if, playing with that Patriots receiving core is going to do him any favors.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like Cam does not start the entire year in New England.
No,
I don't know.
think Mac
I just
Jones
feel
starts
like
eventually, but.
I don't know, and I feel like Cam is better than Mac Jones, but I just think like I don't know. I feel like they want to go back to the kind of Tom Brady way of doing things, and that's why they probably picked him. And I don't know. I think that we see Mac Jones at some point.
Probably. They took him 15th overall. You figure he starts at some point. But I would prefer Cam, just from a talent perspective, from the way they've built their team, from a roster perspective. Cam is better suited to run that offense.
I'd feel a lot better as a defensive coordinator if the team I was going up against was starting Mac Jones. They're starting Cam Newton week 1, barring injury.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not saying maybe week 1. I don't know. Maybe it is. I think Mac might be the most likely to actually just straight up start week 1 though, because it seems like a
I had people
choice.
tell me this exact same thing last year about Jarrett Stidham.
Okay, Jarrett Stidham sucks. No. Jarrett Stidham is awful.
So is Mac
Jarrett
Jones.
Stidham
But he's just more of a Patriots guy, right?
I know he's more, but
Cam
Mac
Newton
Jones
is better than Mac Jones right now.
That is true, but Jarrett Stidham is not a good quarterback at all. And
neither is Mac Jones.
I'll give you that.
They think, he's terrible. Mac Jones is different than Jarrett Stidham. He is. They drafted him in the first round. You don't draft someone you think is bad in the first round, and he's over Jarrett Stidham on the depth chart. So it's different. It is very different. But I do think if you didn't want to get back to the Tom Brady way of doing things, you wouldn't pick Mac Jones. That's my opinion.
Well, I could say the same thing. If you didn't want to start Cam Newton, you wouldn't bring him back. If you didn't want to do things that way. The way I see it,
they weren't sure that they would be. I don't know, but
I don't disagree with you that first off, Mac Jones is considerably better than Jarrett Stidham. I have higher expectations for Mac Jones. I don't want to make those two things are the exact same. But I feel like that's mismanaging Cam to not start him week 1, barring he looks terrible in camp or he gets injured. I think that the Patriots go Cam week 1 and they see how it goes for a little while, and they'll see from there. But Mac Jones starting week 1 would be pretty tough, I think, for him. I think you at least give Cam Newton the chance with the offense that has at least a decent amount of weapons to see what he can do. Because at the end of the day, I think Bill Belichick believes in Cam Newton's talent and knows that an offense where Cam Newton is playing at his best is probably better than an offense where Mac Jones is playing at his best.
I would not want to start Mac Jones week 1 against the Dolphins.
So even if they thought that Mac Jones was the better quarterback going into week 1, you probably just start Cam Newton anyway, see what he has, and get that question out of the way. Because if you put Mac Jones in your rookie week 1 and he doesn't look amazing right away, the Cam Newton, where's Cam Newton? Let's bring in Cam Newton stuff starts immediately.
In their first 4 weeks, they go Miami, New York. I'm not worried about the Jets. But then they go Saints and Tampa. If I started Mac Jones, I'm feeling like that's at best case scenario 1 and 3.
What do you feel about Cam Newton? Do you think that's also 1 and 3?
I think maybe they might get past Miami, and they probably get past New Orleans.
Miami might be true. Cam beat Miami week 1 last year too, didn't he?
Did they play Miami week 1?
Yeah, I think they did. But anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Well, you don't want to talk about Cam Newton versus Mac Jones anymore, Theo?
No, I don't.
No.
I want to get off and watch Drew Lock film.
Oh wow, because that's so much better.
That's so much better.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Just a reminder again, whatever platform you're listening on, whether it be YouTube, Apple, Spotify, make sure you rate, subscribe, review, whatever you can do. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in once again, and we'll catch you on the flippity flop.